Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Brett Augustine. I'm one of the senior business advisors for North Central Texas Small Business Development Centers. We're a leading provider for assistance for small businesses. We're grant funded, which allows us to offer these services at no cost to you. This session is being recorded and will be posted to our YouTube channel, which you can find later in case you're missing it today. And we'll be happy to send everybody who is doing it today the opportunity to answer questions along the way. If you do have questions, please put them in a chat room and we'll be happy to take those questions as we go. And speaking of today, we're going to be having Miss Ashley Smalley, who's founder of Smalley Consulting, a human resources consulting firm. Ashley's a certified human resources professional, trusted consultant, and facilitator in the workplace culture sphere. Her presentation today is how to manage your time so it doesn't manage you. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Ashley Smalley.
Well, hey, everybody. It's so good to be with you today. We were just laughing before the recording started about the irony of having a time management course right smack dab in the holidays when we're all so busy. And so thanks for making time or picking it up later when it makes sense for you to do so. If you're on the call, I'll all but beg you to turn your camera on, engage, add your value and input to the call. It'll be better for all of us. I'm going to take a second and share this screen and we will get going. All right, so managing our time. It's a tricky thing because I don't know if you've ever felt like me as a small business owner, but I often feel too busy, like there's too much to do, like there's not enough time to do it all. I feel understaffed, stressed out, totally exhausted, and like I'm not making the impact that I want to because my calendar is dictating everything about my life instead of me telling my life what we're going to do with it. And if you've ever been there, that's probably why you're even watching this video, right? So we want to try to think about how do we manage our time so that we can really maximize our productivity, our ability to rest and relax and reset as business owners. To how do we maximize overall enjoyment and balance in life, and also, like I mentioned, our impact on others. That's why it's under the umbrella title for the series I've been able to participate in November, called "Putting Your Influence to Work." How we manage our time impacts how we can influence the people around us, the people on our teams, the people that we're serving through our businesses. And so we want to make sure we're doing what we can I like to say, squeeze everything I can out of life. So there's no one size fits all approach to time management, though. And that's the tricky thing. I don't know if you've ever sat through a course or you've listened to somebody else talk about the way they manage their time, and you're thinking, I've tried that. It doesn't work for me. And that's entirely the case. So everyone's got a different style, a different approach, different ways that we think and manage information. And so today, what I've tried to do is I did a little crowdsourcing before we got on here to try to gather ideas from other people. So you weren't just getting the things that work for me. And if we have some time at the end, I'll give you the opportunity to share the things that work for you as well. We'll go through the challenges that people often find get in the way of feeling like they're really managing their time well, and then the hacks that people have found that are really, really useful for squeezing everything they can out of their day. At the end, to try to give some just very practical visibility to it, I'll show you what I do with my calendar and my to-do list to try to manage my time so that maybe that gives some visibility to some of the things that we talk about in the session. And then like I say, we'll have time for questions and for you to add what your thoughts are as well. I did think it was important for me to tell you why I think I'm semi-qualified to even talk about this. So of course, Brett mentioned that I own a consulting company. I'm a small business owner myself. In fact, I'm a solopreneur. It's just me. My firefighter friends would say I'm the chief cook and bottle washer around here. And you probably know what that's like. You're doing all of the tasks, all of the marketing, all of the actual work at times, and it feels like there's not enough to go around. So I'm in that position as well. But in addition to that, I also serve 2 days a week on a local church staff. So technically, I'm doing consulting work 3 days a week and church work 2 days a week. However, I will tell you there's no such thing as part-time ministry work, and there is enough consulting stuff happening around here to justify being full-time. And so I'm taking very busy roles and meshing them together into one calendar and making it work and managing time and setting things up so that my family still has time with me, and both of the organizations that I'm working through and serving people through feel like they're getting what they need out of me. And that is based on feedback that they've given, not just stuff I'm making up about myself. So I just want you to know I'm in the role that you're in. I'd understand in many ways where you're coming from, and we're going to try to figure out how to get the most out of our time, because there's only so much time in a day, right? We can't create more time. And sometimes we look at the people around us and we're like, how are they pulling off everything that they're pulling off? They're getting way more done than what I am. And that's not necessarily the case. The truth is, we've all got the exact number of hours in the day as the person next to us, and it's really what will we do to maximize that time. So let's look at some principles, some just high-level principles of time management that will kind of serve as an umbrella for all of these other things we'll talk about, the challenges and hacks. We kind of want just this foundation, an understanding of where I'm coming from when I'm talking about how do we actually manage our time? Why is it important to do that? And those things that we're going to talk about will be how do we prioritize, how do we focus, and how do we reset? I think these are all three critically important and equally important for us to be able to manage our time well. So when I say prioritize, I'm talking about what are the most important things? What are the things that we have to get to? I don't know if you've seen it. There's a book or a little booklet called The Tyranny of the Urgent. And The Tyranny of the Urgent talks about how we get to the things that are urgent, the things that are pressing, the squeaking wheel, but we don't get to the most important things because we're so busy doing the urgent things. And so when we're thinking about prioritizing to manage our time, we're thinking about what are the most important things, and we're scheduling those things in. They get priority spot in our schedule. One of the books that helped me really figure out how to do this well, and I'll share it with you in case you find it useful, is called Do What Matters Most by Rob Schallenberger. And Do What Matters Most focuses on identifying what are my life priorities in my business, in my work, in my volunteer roles, in my family roles, whatever they are. What are the things that are important to me? And how do I build my schedule, my calendar around those priorities? So prioritizing our schedule is huge so that the things that matter most are getting the attention that they need. I don't know if you've ever heard the analogy where you've got a jar and you've got a certain number of rocks you've got to fit in the jar. And if you just put them in there willy-nilly, you put all the little ones in, the big ones never fit. But if you put the big ones in, then the little stuff will fill in the cracks around it. So we want to make sure we're prioritizing the most important things in our schedule. The other thing we've got to do when we're thinking about priorities is we do have to consider the deadlines. We do have to consider what are the urgent things, the near deadlines, and also the far deadlines. If we don't want to be controlled by the tyranny of the urgent, then we have to address those priorities, those deadlines that are coming later, sooner rather than later, right? So if I've got a deadline that's coming, I've got something I've got to get out the door for a client in March, I don't necessarily want to wait until March to look at it for the first time. Maybe there are some things I can do now while it's not super pressing and I've got some openings in my calendar that will set me up for more success and the opportunity to get to the important things between now and March. So we do have to consider the deadlines and think about how to layer those into the steps that we've got to do to accomplish those deadlines, meet those deadlines. How do I layer those in my schedule between now and the deadline? One thing I have to consider, particularly in a leadership role, is there something that I need to prioritize because someone else is waiting on me to be able to move forward? So when I think about whether that's I outsource marketing because I can't get to it. One of the things we have to know is what our limitations are and where we need help in business, right? So I outsource particularly my social media marketing. I have to consider, as the person running my business, does Carly, my marketer, does she have everything in her hand that she needs to be able to do the job she's doing for me? If she's waiting for me, I'm wasting time and money And she's wasting all of her energy waiting on me to get her what she needs. So is there someone waiting on something for me? If so, I need to prioritize that in to my calendar so that the whole business is moving forward as effectively as it can be. Another thing that I found that's really useful for me in setting priorities is to make sure that all of my appointments are on my calendar. There was a time in life where I also put all of my reminders on my calendar, and then my calendar got really overwhelming. So then I figured out a different system for keeping up with those reminders and to-do list, and we'll talk about those in a little bit. But all of your appointments should be on your calendar. If those are appointments you're making with yourself, if those are appointments you're making with loved ones, or if those are business related appointments, medical related appointments, whatever they are, put them on the calendar so that you have a realistic picture of how much time you actually have available to you during the workday. So prioritize. We've got to be thinking about the most important, but we've also got to have a view of all the other things to be able to layer them in where they need to, where they make sense. The next principle is focus. We've got to be able to then focus on those priorities that we just set. I don't know if you've ever done this. I have, where I go through and I set the priorities, and then the phone rings and the email starts coming in and somebody walks in, and the next thing you know, there went my priority list for the day, right? So we've got to set focus time for those priorities. As a leader, I've got to set that for me, but I also have to set that for my team. It's okay to communicate to your team, and actually it's a little bit freeing for them. It takes a little time. Everybody's got an adjustment period when there's change, especially if it's been like, hey, my door's always open, come and grab me whenever you need to. I love that leadership style. I do. But it can also lend itself to some resentment or some bitterness when we can't get to the things that we need to get to, or an ineffectiveness in our business. So it is okay to say, you know what, from 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. every day, that's task time. That's when I'm going to be in focus mode. I'd like for you to be in focus mode. If we need to ask each other questions, if we need to run things by one another, unless it's an emergency, let's stay outside of those focus zones. And so it's okay to do that. I found that to be very effective. You can communicate this ahead of time, so it's not like, hey, my door's shut, you better find another time to meet with me. But I've seen companies put it outside their door. I've seen leaders and organizations, talk about if this candle is lit in my office, that means it's focus time for me. That's just a visual indicator. My door's still open. I'm still available to you, but if it's not an emergency, can you wait till the candle's not lit? So just different cues that you can give that say, right now, we're all trying to focus on what needs to be done, and we can collaborate in just a little while. There are great tips and tools for focus. People love time blocking. And I'll tell you, I said some things work for people that don't work for others, and some variations work for people that don't work for others. Time blocking says that you're going to look at your calendar and you're going to block off every single minute in the day. You're going to block off chunks of time for tasks, chunks of time for meals, chunks of time for meetings, and the whole day is going to be scheduled. I've tried it and it doesn't work for me, but there are lots of people that it works really, really well for. So that is something that you can consider. What works for me instead is a variation of that, where I look at it and go, okay, I'm not going to put it on my calendar because it's overwhelming to me, but I know that from 8 to 10, that's when I have before meetings to start working on some things for the day. And then I know I've got those meetings blocked off because they're on my calendar. And then I know I've got some time that I can work on things afterwards. So it's not all blocked off on my calendar, which makes me feel like I need to hyperventilate a little bit. But mentally, I know when I'm working, when I'm meeting, when I'm resting, when I'm resetting. So time blocking is useful. One thing that I have found really, really useful for me in that is if I'm working on like tasks, if I look at my task list for the day and I've got, 10 or 12 different things on there that I want to try to accomplish, and 3 or 4 of them are marketing related, or 3 or 4 of them are related to the same upcoming event, I'll work on those grouped like things together. So if I'm having to do a bunch of things in Canva and on social media, I just get in there and I dive in and I do all of it while I'm kind of in the zone of doing those things. Or if I'm working on an upcoming event at the church, I will work through everything that has to be done related to that specific event and then I move on to the next thing. And that helps my brain get into a spot where it's just kind of moving and grooving. It's not starting and stopping and back and forth, but it can move and go. So that will help with focus. There are lots of little apps, even on, I don't know if it's on Android. So if somebody has an Android, you let me know, but I know on my iPhone, you can set focus times that where only certain people can get through to you during those times. Sometimes I'm like, that seems complicated. I'm just going to put it on silent for the next 30 minutes. I'm giving myself 30 minutes of uninterrupted time to do the thing I need to do so I can focus. That's totally fine. So you got to just think through what makes sense for you. You want to think about doing the hardest thing, the most complicated thing, the thing that needs your most concentration at whatever time of day you do your best work. I've heard it said that you should always do the hardest thing first. And I like that. I tend to roll that way, but I'm also a morning person. And so my best concentration happens in the morning. My mom, who I love dearly and is my polar opposite in every possible way, is a night owl. If you try to have her do something that requires deep concentration at 8 a.m., it's going to be garbage. But if you let her do it at midnight, she's about to rock that thing. And so it's knowing ourselves to know when should I be doing the thing that requires my best concentration, and set your schedule up so that's when your focus time is. For me, I try not to schedule meetings in the morning because I can meet and converse and socialize and do whatever any time of day. But if I need to read for comprehension, or if I'm creating content, that's got to happen in the morning for it to be my best work. So you just think about that and you set your focus time up accordingly. So prioritize and then give yourself focus so that you can actually accomplish those priorities. And then the next thing that does not often get talked about in time management is reset. Sometimes we need to rest, we need to reset, and we need to start over. We need to give ourselves some breathing room. So I've been learning to play the drums for about 2 years. I play the drums in our worship band at church, and I'll be taking a lesson. My teacher's trying to teach me something, and my brain is like, it's like I'm a baby deer learning to walk for the first time. My hands and my feet, I'm trying to coordinate it. It's not working. And he'll say, why don't you sleep on it and try again in the morning? And so what he's saying is walk away. When you feel like you're butting your head up against a wall, walk away, rest. Something happens in our brain when we sleep, and it regenerates our brain. And the things that we were working on the day before are so much clearer the next day. So it's okay. If you're not on ultimate deadline, and hopefully we've planned ahead so we're not down to the wire, then you have the opportunity to take a break, to sleep, to let your brain reset. Or sometimes, honestly, I'll get up, and this is the perk of being a small business owner. I can get up and I can walk around the block and kind of let my mind reset and refocus, and then come back and things make more sense. And so it's knowing when we need to do that. The other thing is, you got to take your vacation time. And I know that it was like I just said cuss words to you as a small business owner, because when in the world would I do that? And how can I do that? And the phone's still ringing. And I know that. So I'm a small business owner. My husband owns a construction company that is very demanding, but it's also a small business. And so we go on vacation, and I know what it looks like. We try to set it up so that we have as much vacation time as possible while we're on vacation. The ideal would be you go and you don't have to think about work. When that's not possible, we try to set it up so that we are doing work for the first couple of hours of the day, and then we're on vacation with each other and our family for the rest of the day. Or we'll try to set it up, like sometimes with my husband's construction schedule, he can kind of get things lined out early on Monday, early on Tuesday, and then we're pretty good through the week. So it's just knowing your business, what are the demands, and how can you really maximize that vacation time? Because here's what studies show. Studies shows that when we get away from work, not only does it rejuvenate us so that we are better at our work when we get back, but y'all, we enjoy it more because we got a break from it. If you've ever gotten to go on vacation without small grimy hands all over you, or you got to get away from someone for a second, it makes you appreciate them more. And the same is true of our work. So we need that reset time. My husband, because his work is so demanding, he is intentional to schedule in downtime. And this is what it looks like. He's a bass fisherman, and he knows that in March, April, and May, and October, November, and December every year is the best bass fishing on our lake. And so he makes me, at the beginning of those months, get out the calendar and we block off time when that man's going to be fishing on the weekend. Because it's that important for his mental reset, and that's his favorite way to do it. So, what is it for you? Because I can promise you it's not fishing for me. What is it for you? Make sure that you're scheduling in those breaks during the year, during the course of the week, and during the course of the day as well. I can't tell you how often those little quick walks, like the 10-minute walk around the block, helps me reset and be better for the rest of the day. So, the other thing I would add to that as far as resetting goes is if you sleep with your phone next to your bed, I confess to you that I do this as well. It's my alarm clock. I break all the rules, but as much as possible, use some self-control and don't check that sucker first thing in the morning. And also see if you can't give yourself an hour break before bed, or say once the workday's over, once dinner time starts, we're not working anymore for today. You've got to give yourself a break. And I know that sounds crazy, but it's necessary to be able to perform at your best. And then that helps you manage your time better, because when you're not performing at your best, you're having to redo things over and over. You're having to go back and revisit them. And it's creating more work than is necessary than if you would give your brain time to reset. So, anybody have anything you want to add to that before we move on to those challenges and hacks? All right, Brett.
Nothing in the chat. You seem to be freed up.
Fantastic. Here we go. So let's talk about challenges. So these are some of the things people shared with me, things that get in the way of managing our time well. And they said, not properly delegating. Yeah, I get that, because isn't it easier to do it yourself than it is to explain to someone else how to do it and then answer all of the ensuing questions that they have? But the truth is, when we do that, we are freeing up our time to be able to work on the things that only we can work on. And it's an investment into our people for them to be able to grow and develop and to take on more and to show more initiative in the future. It also is a great opportunity for me to know what my strengths are as a leader and what the people who work for me, what their strengths are. So I can delegate to them the things that come easily to them and bring them great enjoyment that's kind of a headache for me, and vice versa. I can take on the things that make it very difficult for them because I actually enjoy it. It gives me juice to the day, and I can knock it out really quickly because it is in my natural wheelhouse. So don't get stuck not properly delegating. It's a gift for your people and a gift for yourself. So give. I don't know if you know this, today is National Giving Day, and I don't think this is what they mean, but we could absolutely just give away some of those tasks and free up some time on our calendar. The next thing that gets in the way is overthinking, and where you sit and it's the analysis paralysis, right? Where you've thought about it, you thought about it from every angle, you've observed it from every which way, and you just can't decide what to do next. Here's the deal: make a decision. Make a decision and move forward. Almost any decision we make is correctable. Almost any decision we make, if it's wrong, can be fixed. Do not be paralyzed to make decisions. And if you're in a leadership role, people are looking you to be able to make wise choices quickly. So think on it if you need to, if it's a big decision. But if it's a small one, just make the decision, make it and go. Don't get stuck right there. Avoiding unpleasant tasks. Anybody ever done this? You've got something, it's been on your list for 3 weeks. You just keep moving it down the list. You just keep moving it to the next day, the next week, the next month, because you don't want to do it, because it's unpleasant. It's going to take more time than you think. It's going to be messier than what it has to be. And so you keep putting it off. Let's get it done. You have no idea what a mental load off it is to finally get that thing done. And we'll talk in just a little bit about one of the hacks that we can do when we've got those big looming projects we don't want to get to, that will help us get those marked off of the list. Another thing that gets in the way, and I confess to you that I understand this one fully, is saying yes to everything. We say yes to lots and lots and lots of good things. And here's the deal: every time we say yes to something, we're saying no to something else. So every time I say yes to a good task, a good volunteer opportunity, a good networking opportunity, every time I say yes, I'm saying no to either a priority, something that I've outlined as very important, my family. You think about it. Every time you say yes, because you only have so many hours in a day, you're saying no to something else. So we want to think about, what can we say no to? Sometimes we've got to say no to even good causes. We've got to say no to free us up to be able to focus on the most important things. And one of the things I've learned over the years, because I'm absolutely have a reformed yes man, where I'm like, yes, I'll do it, I'll do it, I'll do it, is when I say yes to assignments that really are not my best place to be serving or working, I'm taking someone else's assignment that really was the best place for them. It really was an opportunity for them to grow. It really was a chance for their best gifts to be used. And I have said yes, and not only clogged up my calendar, but kept the people around me from being able to grow. So if we want to manage our time well, we cannot say yes to everything. Now, I will give you a real life example. About this time last year, I was completely overwhelmed and I had way too much. I had overcommitted and I had underestimated. Have you ever been there? And so I said to my husband, I cannot say yes to anything else for the rest of the year. And he said, deal. Because if we're going to argue about something, it's going to be about our calendars. It's not going to be about money or parenting or any of those things. We're going to fight about our schedules, because I'm a yes and he's a no to everything. And so I said, I can't say yes to anything else. And he said, done. And then, like 12 minutes later, I got a message from my daughter's flag football coach who said, hey, parents, the season's almost over. We need to know who's going to host the end of your party. And I was like, I don't want to do that. I think it's dumb for them to even have a party. And then the next thing that I said was, but if it's on the right day, I can probably do it. And then I looked at him and said, I think I just volunteered to host the party. And he said, what are you doing? You text them back right now and you tell them that you were wrong. You cannot. And so I did, and I felt much better because that was the right decision. So we've got to say no to even good things in order to be able to do the best things. The other thing that gets in the way is interruptions. And isn't this the truth, where it's a revolving door, the phone keeps ringing, the people keep needing things, and we cannot get to everything. The best thing that I can tell you for this is, do not plan down to the minute for your day. I am capable. I know myself well. I know how long it will take me to do things most of the time, and I can get to just within minutes on my calendar, assuming the phone doesn't ring, assuming a client doesn't need something, and they always do. So we have to leave margin. When you are planning, you want to leave, and this is going to sound crazy, you're probably going to choke on it a little bit. I am too. But roughly 20% of our day, we need to leave available for unexpected interruptions. And at the end, when I'm showing you my system, I will show you visibly why that is. So like I mentioned, that focus time, communicating focus time to your team, that will help a lot with you. And y'all, I'm telling you, your team, once they get used to knowing they've got uninterrupted time where the people in the office or on the team can't interrupt them as well, it really is a huge opportunity for people to be kind of freed up to work freely. All right, challenges. Now let's look at the hacks. Let's look at, how do we actually do this thing? How do we actually manage our time more effectively? And like I say, some of these are best practices. Some of these were crowdsourced from people on my social media feeds. And then some of these are just my life experience. The 2-minute rule was one that came up consistently. Some people said it was the 2-minute rule. Some people said it was the 3-minute rule. Some people said it was the 5-minute rule. But basically what it is if you can get it done in that window of time, 2, 3, or 5, whatever you like. I like 2. Don't even write it down. Just do it. Instead of taking the time to put it on the calendar, just do it. Just get that little thing checked off, get it out of the way, get it out of your mental clog, and move on. Now, I need you to know I'm the sicko that likes to write down things on my to-do list after I've done them so that I can mark them off. So it pains me to say that sometimes it's better for us to just do it, but it's better to just do it and then resist the urge to write it down and mark it off. So the 2-minute rule, great one. I will find myself when it's like, oh, I need to text so-and-so about this. Just just send the text instead of writing down that you need to send the text and then trying to find time to send the text later in the day and then stressing out because you haven't sent the text and then you have to stop because now it's urgent. You have no choice but to send the text and it's right in the middle when you need to be doing something else. Just do it. If it'll take 2 minutes or less, knock it out. The other thing is write it all down. Sometimes the reason we have analysis paralysis is because our brains are too full, and it's not because we're geniuses. It's because we haven't brain dumped. And so we need to get it all out. If it's just spiraling in there, if you lay awake at night going, when am I going to do this? I don't know when I'm going to do that. And, oh, crap, I forgot I got to do that. Write it down. Even put it in a note in your phone right then and get it out of your brain. And then figure out when does it make sense to actually do those things. Actually look through the things that you just wrote down and figure out, okay, which one of those are actually priorities and which one of those are just little irritating things that you are floating around. Sorry, Brett, I got distracted. You posted a comment. Tell me what it said.
My apologies. I didn't want to interrupt because you were on a good roll there. Lots of good information. Yeah, but how do you keep up with things that you're trying to keep track of? And you're saying, I want to make sure it got done, because you mentioned something that I am also guilty of, which is after I did it, I go back and write it down so I can write it off and scratch it off my list. It makes me feel good to just do the line. Done.
Yes.
What do you have a better solution for that? Because if not, we think, did I do that?
Well, and if you need to do it for tracking, okay. But most of the time, it's just stuff that we need to not forget to do. It's not necessarily that we have to even remember that we did it. If it's a text message, I've got a record of it. It's in my phone. If it was emailing a client, I've got a record of it. It's in my email. Those sorts of things. I don't need the record. I like the satisfaction of marking it off. And if it's something where we needed to notate that it was done, then there's probably an appropriate place associated with that project or whatever where it makes sense to make that note. But you probably needed to make that note anyway, and now the task is already done, and it feels good to have gotten it done and off the plate. Does that help?
Oh, absolutely. No, absolutely. Thank you for that.
Sure. Now, everything else, write it down, right? Like that's the point we were on. Write it all down so that it's not floating around and clogging up your mental highways. And so that you then have a visual that you can prioritize off of when we are planning out your next week or your next month. And we'll look at that in a little bit when I'm showing you what my system is. The 3 things method is huge for me. I don't always need 3 things to use this method, but if I'm ever completely overwhelmed by the number of things on my list on any given day, the easiest thing for me to do and the thing that helps me just be efficient and get them done and stop the mental spiral, which speeds up my efficiency time-wise, is close my to-do list, get out a sticky note, put it on top of my planner, and write down what are the top 3 things that have to be done today. Just those 3 things. And I don't allow myself to open my planner up and look at anything else until those 3 things are done. And then when they're done, I can open my planner up and I can add 3 more. If opening it up and scratching those 3 off still doesn't make me feel better, all right, next sticky note, next 3 things. I cannot tell you how much mental space that frees up for me on those days when I'm completely overwhelmed by the number of things that need to be done. The other thing I would add is studying yourself. I told you I'm pretty good at knowing how long it takes me to do things, but it's because like internally, I'm the weirdest, nerdiest time manager organizer. Like my brain just does that naturally, but that's not true. And for everyone, for most people, we underestimate how long it will take us to do something. So I would say if you've got recurring tasks that you're trying to figure out how to manage your time, how to block time off, how to set aside task time, study yourself and see how long does it take me to send out that report every Monday, so that I'm not taking up double what when I'm planning next Monday, I'm not taking up an hour when it should have been 2, because that's how long it takes me to pull all that data and generate that report. So study yourself on those things that you do commonly, regularly, week in, week out. That way you have an idea of how long it actually takes you to do them. And you're not surprised by how little time you have on your calendar when it took longer than you expected. Color coding is also huge. I don't know. I work with a former teacher who says the brain processes color. The brain, when we see color, it helps us with understanding and comprehension. And so my calendar is always color coded. My day planner has lots of different colors in it. Different ink means different things. Whether, if it's written in black, like that's a really serious thing and it needs to be done. If it's written in orange, it's a reminder for something later. And so color coding can help you so that when you're looking at your calendar, you're looking at your task list, you're not totally overwhelmed, not knowing which are the big things, which are the small things. You could color code based on priority because I have the 2 jobs. Mine are color coded based on which job. And then below that, and my calendar, which I'll show you in a minute, has a color code for all of those things. Networking stuff has a different color. My kids have a different color on my calendar. That sort of thing. So that's a really useful thing for people. Now, here's the deal. Remember when I said sometimes those really ugly tasks, I mean, they're the ugliest. We don't ever get to them. We keep putting them off because they're so awful. And usually it's because they're either intimidating because we don't know how, or because they're large projects. One of the best things we can do for ourselves is take those big projects and chunk them into smaller, more manageable bites. And I watch myself do this. And you learn the hard way. That's how everything I'm teaching you, I've learned the hard way. I have a task that I have been putting off. Actually, what I did is I said, I have time to work on that in November. It's not pressing. I can work on it in November. Well, I would like to point out that today's the 28th of November, and I started working on it today. And the reason is it's a big, ugly project, and I didn't follow my own advice and chunk it. And so what I finally did this morning is say, hold on. I need to review that presentation. I need to make edits to that presentation. I need to submit the presentation for approval. Then I need to record the video for the presentation. Okay, well, those things, I mean, I got the thing reviewed before lunch because I finally broke it down into a more manageable task for me. The other thing is when it's a really big project, it's like, when am I going to find 6 hours to work on this? I don't have 6 uninterrupted hours at night in bed when I'm sleeping. So how would I do that during the day? And so to get them in, whether it's a 1-hour chunk for you or a 30-minute chunk for you, figure out what chunk of time is workable and break them down into chunks that small. There are apps that are really good for this. I've heard people say Pomodoro is really, that's I guess a style, a planning style, but there's a Pomodoro app that would help with that. I haven't personally used it, but I have had people say that they find that to be really effective. Reminder apps, huge for me. I use the one in my phone. There are all different sorts of ones, but in my iPhone, there's just like the reminder function. And when I realized that I could use that sucker to put down everything that needs to be done, and I can have it notify me at a certain day, a certain time, or a certain location, that was a game changer. So now when something's happening, instead of letting it float around in there, I'm like, oh, the next time I'm at the church, I need to do this. And so I'll put the thing in, and I either set the reminder for when I know I'm going to be there next, or I put the address in so that the next time I pop up, it reminds me to get the stuff out of my car that I loaded up to take. That way I'm not mad at myself for having to make a special trip and waste time to go back later and take it. So those reminder apps are huge for helping you keep track of the things that you might otherwise lose. Task managers are the same way. For a long time, the company that I worked for used Microsoft Outlook for everything. And I loved it so much, particularly the task manager, because I could go in and I could flag things and I could set deadlines on them. And then the thing that I really love, so if you use Outlook, you might like this as well, is I could print a trifold version of the week in Outlook, and it would give me all of my tasks for the week on the left. It would give me notes in the center, and it would give me a 1-week calendar at a glance on the right. And I would just print that out at the beginning of every week. And that's what I was able to work off of. And that worked well when I just had one job. Once I got 2, that was not enough of a system for that. But task managers are huge. And it's a great way. Everybody's different, right? I said, not everything works for everybody. Some people want to be all digital. Some people want to be all paper. I use a hybrid because that makes sense for me. And so you just have to kind of play with it. If it's not working, if you're still feeling like you're being dragged behind the train every time you're trying to kind of get your day together, then let's try something different and see if it's a better fit for you. A sticky note. Who loves a good sticky note system? Brett, do you have sticky notes in your office? Yes. Right? Don't forget this. Don't forget that. And the main thing is sticky notes work for a lot of people. I'm fan of the sticky note, as long as you have a system for them. Maybe it's you prioritize the most important ones are on the top and you work your way down the list of sticky notes, or maybe it's you put them in strategic places. I use them for future planning in my paper planner. If I know like, oh, I got to do something in October, I'll just stick a sticky note right on the month view of October, stick it in there so that I've got it. Now, when I go to plan October, it's there and I haven't forgotten about it. So figure out if a sticky note is a friend of yours, or if they just keep getting lost, maybe it's time to go digital or get something that's bulkier that you like stone tablets or something that you can't lose as easily. All right. Questions or thoughts about hacks before I kind of take you through a high level view of the way I manage my schedule?
I was thinking, I don't know if it's really a hack, but I was thinking that something recently, my husband, as I mentioned, works from home. And I was thinking about our other small business um, clients that work from home. Is my husband, for a period of time, was using our dining room for his office. And it was great because we didn't have a dining room table and it wasn't a big deal. But our oldest son moved out permanently about 2 years ago. My husband had this epiphany, which I was thrilled with this last weekend, that he wanted to move his office into my son's room so he'd have a door that he could shut. So if I came home or somebody was home, they wouldn't interrupt him. And he cleaned out all of his stuff in his office from the dining room, put it in my son's room. It took us an entire weekend, a Friday afternoon until Sunday night. And getting rid of the clutter that he would look at every single day and sit down and go, wow, that's really dirty. Wow, that's really, really
Yes.
helped him focus.
Focus.
And
Mhm.
like you said, make a list and give himself a priority. I've been begging him for do it for a while, but I was so supportive and so happy that he did it.
Yeah.
But I know clients that work from home, sometimes it's difficult because
Well,
you're
and
in
if
an
you,
environment that you may not have had created for yourself at that point.
yes.
You don't have the time to really make it yours. And
Yeah.
so when you do and you take that time, you're investing in your company, your business, yourself, but you're also, like you said, freeing your mind from the little things like, wow, I really need to move that. Wow, why is that there?
The other thing that it does,
Yeah.
Christy, is it gives me a chance to reset. If I work in the place where I play and relax with my family,
Right.
my brain's kind of always in work mode. And I know that it's not feasible for everyone to have a dedicated work spot in their
Sure.
home, for those of us that have that. But if you are able to, if there's a place where when I'm in this room, I'm working, and when I'm not in this room, I'm not working. That was some of the studies that came out of 2020 and kind of that huge transition to work from home, is that there was a lot of stress and a lot of burnout because we didn't turn it off. We just, because we were now living in our workspace, we were working all the time, and that reset is so huge to be effective at what we're doing and making the biggest impact on the people around us.
Right. Just being able to shut that door and be in a real office
Mhm.
environment for him, as opposed to being in our dining room, which our little den
Yes.
was there with the TV and, people were walking through. That was a big game changer for him. He said last week he got more done than he'd gotten done
Yeah,
probably in
that's awesome, and that's a
a whole
great
month.
testimony too of knowing when it's time for a change
Right.
and how effective it can be. And so maybe you're a small business owner watching this, and you have found yourself in that exact same position. And
Mhm.
Christy's talking about you can shut yourself in to get work done, and that's
Yeah.
huge. That's that focus time. But also you can shut that door on the work when you walk out, and now you've got
Right.
reset time. And so the door works both ways. So that's
Yeah.
great. Thank you so
Yeah.
much for that.
Sure. Sure.
All right, here we go. Let me show you the high level overview of how I make this mess work at my business. So I approach the year, the quarter, the month, the week, and the day. And so I look at each of these. So I have planning annually, quarterly, monthly, weekly, daily. And it's not as long for daily as it is for, say, quarterly, but every year I will look at the organizations, like the ongoing networking things that I know for sure that I want to make it to, or the places where I'm going to volunteer, where I know I've got these things coming up, or I know our family vacation is going to be this week in June or whatever. And I will plan and block that time off so that I have it. It is set, and I'm not overriding it with other more urgent things. And that way I can plan accordingly. Now that I own my own small business and I can set my training schedule with clients, I try to block off, spring break when the kids are home or fall break when the kids are home, mostly because they are distracting, and also because I want to spend time with them. And that's the answer I'd like for you to tell them if they ask. So annual planning is huge for me, kind of getting those big markers down on the calendar. At a quarterly level, I look and go, what are the upcoming projects? What are the things that are coming up? What are the promises I've made to clients that require preparation? And then I schedule that into the quarter. I don't wait until it's due and go, okay, how am I going to get this done? But I chunk that thing and go like, when do I need to research? When do I need to create? When do I need to submit it? And kind of work backwards from the due date to feather it in over a longer period of time. I will do the same thing at a monthly level. I'll look at it and go, okay, and this is just life. I didn't get to everything I thought I was going to get to last month. And so now here we are, we're a month out, and I need to make sure that these things get accomplished. And then I will feather it into each week. So I told you I'll use a sticky note when I know something's coming up for the next month. I do the same thing for the upcoming weeks. So if I know I need to take care of something in 3 weeks, but I don't want it floating around because I'll for sure forget about it, I have a sticky note pretty much on every week of my planner, and I can just go in and add a little bullet point to that sticky note. And then when it's time for me to plan the week, I've got that sticky note that I can work off of, and it's kind of already written down the things that I've already thought that I need to do. So weekly, I like to do it on Friday afternoon. That's my happy time to do it. But sometimes it's Sunday afternoon before it happens. But before the next week begins, I will stop and I will look at what are the appointments, what are the obligations, what are the deadlines for next week, when am I actually going to be able to work? And based on those sticky notes and the tasks that need to be accomplished for those meetings and those projects, what has to be done on any given day next week. And I will begin to try to create time blocks where I know I can work, and I will group like things together, all the things that we've been talking about, right? And I will put them down in my day planner, kind of chunked together like they need to be. And then daily, I also really like to do it at the end of the day. But if I'm being honest, sometimes I'm running down to the wire when the day's over. It's time to go pick the kids up from school, and then something explodes and I don't get to it until the next morning. I will look and go, okay, now some week has happened, some interruptions have happened, some unplanned things have happened. Let me look at the day. Is what I plan still workable? Are those still the priorities for the day? And if not, I make adjustments. If I have not blocked those like tasks together, I will do that when I'm looking at the day. And I'll tell you, like sometimes, like even this morning, I was like, man, I don't know if I'm going to be able to get to everything today that needs to be done just based on the things that have been coming in this week. So I took the to-do list that were on my day and I prioritized them and just put a number out beside them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. These are the order that I need to work things in order to be most efficient. And so that's kind of how I will approach the calendar and the scheduling and the time management. Here's what it actually looks like. And please forgive me for giving you such an intimate look into my life. But on the front, that front picture is my Google Calendar, color coded like I promised that it would be. And then behind it is the same week with those tasks. So if you see the yellow highlights, I told you things are color coded on the 13th and the 16th. They're highlighted yellow. Those are the days I know I'm going to be at the church. So I've got to plan accordingly for that. The other days are Smalley consulting days. And so I up there in the blue, like where on Monday it says 10 o'clock staff meeting, I'll go and I'll add my appointments. And then I look and go, how much actual task time do I have? So you can see on Tuesday, I had 2 hours that I could actually do tasks. On Wednesday, I had 3 hours that I could actually do tasks. And so I will try to figure out how much do I think I can actually get done in those times and then leave some margin. Now, here's why I leave margin. Here's that same week. Can you see it, Brett? This is the same week. Do you notice that there are way more things written down now after that week has passed than what was written down initially?
Yeah.
That's because life happens and interruptions happen. That's why we have to leave margin. That was an event week at the church. And so things blew up all over the place. And I knew that going in. So I had to leave margin. And so then you'll see on Friday, prep next week, like the things that it's always scheduled in that I know I need to do that going into the next week. So that's really what my approach is. I have found that to be very functional and helpful for me. That's not necessarily going to work for everybody. My hope is that if you've watched this or participated in the call, that you find one or two things that you can take away. You know how if you're like, okay, I'm overhauling everything from now, I've never kept a calendar. Now I'm going to have a color-coded calendar with all the task lists, and that we're not going to do any of it. It'll be like a New Year's resolution, and 3 days in, we're done. Pick the one or two things that maybe stood out. You're like, oh, that could be helpful, and make them part of your habits. And I bet you will begin to see better time management and more effectiveness, more productivity. And then y'all, that makes it so that we are able to impact the people around us, both those who work for us and those who we serve through our business more effectively. Okay. That being said, what questions do you have, or what things do you do to manage your time that somebody else might find really helpful? It's just so natural to you at this point, and I may have never even thought of it. What do you have?
Well, I have one thing that I do. I'll be happy to share. A lot of people leave their email open all day, and that little constant ding, ding, ding would absolutely make me crazy. One of the things I learned early on in my career prior to this particular role, I got a lot of emails. And so in order to prioritize it, I did kind of what you were talking about with your hacks about taking 3 tasks and focusing on them and shutting everything else out for the moment. And I do this by saying, I adopted check your emails in the morning with a cup of coffee. Prioritize those things that are important, get the quick ones out of the way, like you mentioned as well. I'm glad to hear that we, at least on my team, it sounds like we're doing a lot of things right according to you. So I'm happy with that, including our colorful calendar, which I can't share with you, but if I could, just know it looks like a Skittles thrown all over the table. So
I love it.
yeah, yep. And anyway, after that, so it's like 3 major times of the day that you check your email, and the rest of the time you just sort of leave it closed down, even if it's open, but always turn off that ding, 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 because you just go in, prioritize, answer the quick ones and easy ones, or let them know that you're working on it, and then put it away. And then at lunch is the other time, right before the end of the day.
And
Yeah.
I have heard that. And some jobs don't allow themselves that luxury. You know, if you're in a customer service role or something, you don't necessarily have that. But running a small business, we often do. It just depends. I found I need to turn all notifications off on my phone as well. Like even social media notifications, I don't get them. I have to actually go into the app to see if there's anything that I, need to see. Because that's a distraction for me, and because the same type A drive that makes me want to write things down after I've done them to mark them off wants to make sure that all the notifications are cleared off of every app in my phone, and so I have to just turn those off as well. So that's a great one. That's a great one. I think really what it comes down, if anybody else has something you want to share, I'd love to hear it. I think really what it comes down to is a little bit of discipline. We tend to be more willy-nilly with things. Like we know the right things to do. You said, Brett, your team's doing what you need to be doing. And yet probably everybody on the team would say, man, I think I could manage my time better. And it's because we lack discipline. And I point all the fingers at me first. We lack discipline to stick with the things that we know work. And we allow ourselves to be pulled here and there instead of remaining focused. And I think that's why reset is so important, because we can remain focused better when we reset, and then we can actually accomplish those priorities. So.
Oh, I said we as a team were trying to do many of the things that you talked about. I, as a person, I still struggle. Do not think any differently. I can be distracted quicker and better than anybody that's on the call right now, I bet you.
I did notice while I was doing research for today's presentation that if you struggle with ADD or ADHD, that they actually have some apps that are very specifically geared toward that thinking style. so that you can, and that's not something that I deal with. So I would not even feel comfortable, speaking to that. But I did notice that there are things that are really helpful for people that's a struggle for helping them or allowing them to accomplish all the things that they want to. So that would be something to look into as well. What I would say for everyone is if you have more questions about time management or resources for your small business, how to figure out how to get more done in less amount of time, the SBDC is a great resource for you. And so we want you to know that they're available and they are handy and they're really nice. And so you should call them and you should check in with them and see what they have to offer you. So with that, I'm going to stop this share and give it back over to Brett.
All right. Well, thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. Ashley Smalley. And
Thank
just
you.
virtual applause, everybody. But at the same time, thank you so much for coming and doing this today and helping us with all of our time management skills. I hope that everybody gets something from today's presentation. I know I did. And that doesn't mean that it's all over, by the way, because Ashley's coming back. If you'll allow me, I would love to share with you when. And she's coming
It's
back on November the 30th with The Way We Work, okay? And so please don't miss that. And I just want to let you know that we also have December 7th coming up with more QuickBooks training with Stacy Kildall, and December 14th as well, customizing forms in QuickBooks. So if you do use QuickBooks as a small business owner, don't miss those presentations as well. And with that, I just want to say thank you all for joining us. There will be a survey coming up right after this. So if you are participating live today, we'll be happy to send that out to you. Or if you were supposed to send it, we'll be sending it back out to you in case you're watching it now because you weren't able to attend. And please let us know the feedback from it so that we can continue to provide great training for you. Then we'd like to say the Small Business Development website is the SBDC website you should go to register for more webinars or to get contact information, to schedule an appointment with an advisor, or get resources for your small business as needed. Please feel free to reach out to us anytime. We are available to you. We are grant funded again, and we'd like to thank the Small Business Administration, the state of Texas, North Texas Small Business Development Center's regional office, and North Central Texas College. Thank you all for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you next time. This concludes the webinar for today. Have a good day.
Thank you, Ashley.
Thank you.